Hey there, Rappies. Rapper9198 here, and welcome to another edition of Ryan's Day Reading. Today I'll be reading Chapter 6 of Imprints, The Evidence Our Lives Leave Behind, titled Flowers. So again, a little recap from the previous chapter, Contagious. They were talking about basically how happiness and positivity is a very contagious thing, and also like how our feelings and the way what we choose to give to others is contagious, whether it's positive or negative. And they were talking about Jerry and Bob. Jerry McDonald, right? I think that was his name, yeah. Jerry McConnell and Bob Johnson. And Jerry would see how Bob was treating people and just asking questions, and just how powerful it is, because it really just shifted their moods and really like helped bring out the better in them. So it just goes to show how powerful the thing kindness is like that. And that's what I highly encourage others to do, and I'm trying to do more of that myself as well. All right, so here we go with chapter 6, titled Flowers. So here's another quote from Lewis Howes. The world is awaiting your gift. All you have to do is show up with the right intention. Right. Giving is a part of life. Birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day. There are many reasons to give something special to the people we love. Sometimes we put a lot of thought into choosing a specific gift, but other times we go with the safe bet: flowers. Appropriate for so many occasions, flowers are the most common gift given to people when they're ill. The simple beauty of their petals, the variety of colors they bring to a room, and their subtle fragrances they have brightened many a dark day. No matter the gifts we receive, there's always intention behind them: love, affection, thanks, the notion that someone is thinking about us. But sometimes a simple gift winds up being much more than a bouquet of flowers. Hospitals are busy places. The halls are filled with people headed to and fro, to x-ray, from the lab, to chemotherapy, from surgery, to outpatient appointments, from the delivery room. So many destinations for patients dealing with a host of different challenges. In a hospital, you're guaranteed to meet people from all walks of life and encounter stories of all kinds: happy ones, sad ones, planned ones, unexpected ones. A vital part of every hospital is its staff, people who've chosen careers grounded in caring for others. Physicians use their knowledge and training to treat diseases of all types. Nurses and aides work hour after hour at bedsides, distributing medications, monitoring and assessing patients, and providing hands-on care. Teams of people transport patients to a variety of locations for things like CAT scans and MRIs. Administrators manage the staff and oversee the placement of patients. Emergency room staff triage the unexpected admissions, and other employees work behind the scenes, managing medical records, maintaining the building and grounds, and making sure everyone in a hospital bed is fed. But quote here too, Some of the most incredible people you will find in hospitals aren't the paid staff, they're the volunteers, men and women who choose to spend time with patients, delivering flowers and balloons, dropping off letters, and carrying out tasks of all types just to make sure things run smoothly. As a lifelong patient and former healthcare administrator, we have both met many volunteers. Most of them are retired, men and women who have spent years in a variety of careers, but now devote part of their well-deserved permanent break from full-time work to helping others when things aren't turning out as planned. One of these volunteers was named Betty. Having spent years as a grade school teacher, Betty was no stranger to helping others. For 30 plus years, she poured into the lives of children, teaching them how to read and write and the importance of math. Each week, she offered young boys and girls a safe place to learn, a place where they knew they were loved and valued. When she wasn't tending to the growth of young children, Betty offered nurture of a different kind. Betty had a passion for gardening. She would tend to a variety of fruits and vegetables each spring and summer, but her real knack was with flowers. Snapdragons, roses, tulips, daffodils, and many others grew in her beds and pots. But her favorites were lilies. She loved their pure beauty and delicate appearance. As she grew older, Betty's knees and back began to feel her age as she struggled to manage the sizable plants in her yard. So she turned to the variety of pots and beds that populated the small greenhouse her husband had built for her before he passed. One of his last gifts to her before he died was the ability to enjoy the colors and fragrances of her beloved flowers long after she left the classroom. After she retired, Betty began spending more time in her greenhouse, but her plants only needed so many hours of care. She felt idle and needed something to fill her time. But she didn't want another hobby. She missed working with people. At the recommendation of a friend, Betty applied to volunteer at a local hospital. Within days, she fell in love with the work. Sometimes she would sort papers or build patient education folders. Other days, she found herself escorting the families of patients through the confusing halls of the hospital. But Betty's favorite task was delivering the variety of gifts that arrived for patients. Balloons, cookie bouquets, potted plants, and flowers came in every day, and Betty jumped at the chance to be the one to take them to patient rooms. But one thing she could not stand was the thought of someone spending time in the hospital with no get-well gift. Betty soon began to put together bouquets of flowers from her greenhouse for the patients she met who seemed to have few visitors or no gifts to speak of. Each week, Betty would note which patients could use a bit of cheering up and made a point to bring flowers to brighten their day. Her creations found their way to the pediatric unit, labor and delivery, and each of the variety of medical and surgical floors. Betty always arrived on time and ready to work her shift because she loved working with and meeting so many beautiful people. Some were broken from loss, others excited for a new future. But all seemed to find a little bit of joy when Betty came to their room. Each person she met had a place in her heart, but several years into her second career of volunteering, Betty encountered a very special patient. On her way to deliver some flowers to an elderly patient on the orthopedic floor, Betty walked to the front desk to double-check the room number. She overheard some nurses discussing a patient who was particularly down, and no one knew why. Betty took a mental note, delivered the flowers, and continued about her day. The next morning, she put together a small bouquet of lilies and drove to the hospital early to make her special delivery to the orthopedic floor. She checked with the patient's nurse to make sure flowers were okay and headed down the hall. Knocking on the door to the room, Betty said, "Good morning. May I come in? I have a delivery for you." "Come in," came the reply. Betty stepped into the room and found herself staring into the eyes of a young woman who appeared to be in her early 30s. Her long black hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her blue eyes starkly contrasted with the pale hospital gown she wore. The young woman's stare shifted from Betty's face to the flowers she held in her hands. Betty introduced herself and explained, "I'm a volunteer here, and I wanted to bring you some flowers." The woman continued to stare at the flowers. "How did you know?" "How did I know what?" Betty replied. "That lilies are my favorite," the patient said, a quiver in her voice. I didn't, but they're my favorite too." When she finally broke her gaze from the flowers, the woman asked, "What did you say your name was?" "Yeah, Betty. And yours?" "Karen," she said softly. "Karen, it is a pleasure to meet you. Is there somewhere you would prefer I put your flowers?" Karen reached for her bedside table, adjusted it so it sat over her lap, and said, "Here, I want them right here so I can see them up close." She paused for a few moments and then said, "I can't believe you brought me lilies. You're sure no one told you?" "I'm sure. I just overheard that you could use some cheering up, and I have a greenhouse full of flowers that I love to share with patients." "You have no idea what this means to me. Do you have a moment to talk? I want to tell you a story." Betty sat next to the bed and listened as Karen told her the story of her youngest daughter. When she was 6 years old, she developed leukemia. We tried every treatment we could: chemo, radiation, experimental medications. Nothing worked. The cancer slowly worked its way through her body. She died a year after her diagnosis. My husband and I have 2 other kids, an older son and daughter. We're a happy family most of the time, but my kids miss their sister. Karen paused to compose herself and grabbed a tissue to dab her eyes. My husband and I, we miss our daughter. It's been 4 years, and I can still see her face as clear as day. Karen laughed to herself. Her name was Lily. My husband and I, we often take lilies to her. Karen reached over to Betty, grabbed her hand, and squeezed it gently. "Thank you so much for this. This is one of the greatest gifts I've ever received. They're exactly what I needed right now." Betty smiled with tears in her eyes. "You're so very welcome. Thank you for telling me about Lily." The two women sat together as Karen shared more about her family. They laughed and cried, and when the conversation came to a close, Betty stood up, hugged Karen, and said, "It was wonderful to meet you." "You too, Betty. You have made this a wonderful day." Sometimes a small thing, given with the simplest of intentions, ends up being so much more. Betty was blessed to be able to see this firsthand, but most of us will never know the weight of our actions. However, that doesn't make them any less important. And here again, another quote that'll be read here. When our motivations are pure and we act accordingly, someone's life will undoubtedly be better. Undoubtedly be made better. Karen's world was made better because of a small thing given with pure intentions. Betty brought joy into her world with a simple gift, motivated by the desire to show love and compassion to another human being. We all have a gift to share. What are your flowers? Alrighty, well, that concludes chapter 6. Wow, again, I just love hearing these types of stories. See how one simple act of kindness can make such a huge impact. I don't know, like, the book really explains, the book should, what I just read should speak for itself, but I just really love that message that it sends, the messages that all these chapters are sending, and I want to be a part in sharing that with other people, because it's what we need in the world. I can't express it enough. More kindness and compassion of this sort, to this extent, is what the world needs now. And that's really all I can say about that. And as I said, I'm really trying to apply these, to my own life even. And so yeah, but I know, sorry, my eye was a little itchy. But yeah, I do like that message that it sends, and I hope people watch my videos and get something out of it. Share this with other people. Please do that. Because that's another reason why I'm doing these videos now, and it feels good that I am doing them. I know the frequency is a bit fast, but it's just, you never know what tomorrow brings, and it's like, I want to do as much as I can while I can. So, and these videos will always remain on my channel so they can be watched by future generations, hopefully. That's what I hope for. All right. Well, again, anyways, thank you, Rappy, so much. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for next time when we go into chapter 7, titled Bending Time. Yeah, so, okay, again, love you, Rappies, to death. God bless. Until next time, I'll see you later.